So one of the coolest, most encouraging parts about working on cars, in my opinion, is even when they're rotten to the core, like with a bad transmission or a busted, bleeding engine, you can just go out with the bad parts, in with the good parts, and fix the problem yourself.
Out with the bad beans, in with the good beans.
It's too bad people don't work like that. I'm turning this Caravan into my daily driver. Welcome to Team Hesh. Okay, picking up where we left off. The engine I was working on in the Caravan is junk. It's got a thrown rod and a frozen piston. The accessories are good, but the core is trash. So I went and picked up this guy from a recycling yard. It's the same engine from a '93 Dodge Shadow, and it should have all the parts I need. So here's the plan. First, I gotta do a couple tests to figure out if this engine's even any good.
I can fix it.
Then I'll tear it down to the short block to prep for a rebuild. That means taking off all the accessories, the intake, and the cylinder heads. So just look at it. This engine is pretty crusty. It's been sitting around for 20 years, so I expect it to fight me, but that's just part of the challenge. I get a good feeling this is gonna work out.
I can fix it.
Yeah, alright, it's gonna be fun. Let's do it. Now, very first thing I'm gonna do is drain the oil and check the oil quality. I'm looking for things like water, coolant, or metal in the oil that'll be clues for other issues. If it's just dirty and oily, then we're good. Yeah, the pan is rusty, but I think I can clean it up. Looks like some of it's just old paint flaking off, and I was reading online that these pans rust through, but this one looks like it might work. So I'm just gonna go for it here.
Brother,
Yeah, okay, I'm not feeling any metal, so yeah, this is good. Feeling good so far. So I really learned my lesson with the first engine. I gotta know if I have a good core before I start building up or repairing any engine. So before I start fighting with the rusty exhaust hardware or the crusty intake, I'm gonna check the cylinders with a bore scope for any crazy damage. So I'll start by getting the plug wires out of the way, and yeah, these are going directly into the trash. So I'm gonna set up this bore scope with a wood clamp so I don't have to hold it. And check this thing out. I think it was like 20 bucks on Temu. It's gonna be perfect for what I need it for. The cord definitely seems kind of long, but I can make it work. All right, I'll crack the plugs and pull them out of the way. They look a little dark, but not bad overall. They're definitely not wet, and I don't think it was burning coolant. I don't see anything like that. Okay, let's check out cylinder. All right, the front of the engine goes this way. Let me just check the diagram. Yeah, okay, so I'm at the back of the engine. All right, so this is cylinder 6. So checking out cylinder 6. Okay, the piston's got a bunch of carbon at the top. Yeah, it's at the top of the stroke. I can't really see much. What I can see is the piston's there and it's not exploded, which is good. That's good news. Okay, moving to the left, this is cylinder 4. Okay, nice. I can see a lot of the cylinder wall and this looks clean. Okay, yeah, no, this is good news. I'm I'm very happy. No vertical scoring on the cylinder walls, and I can still see some crosshatch. Piston dirty again, honestly probably from burning oil. Not surprised with the reputation that these engines have, which is for burning oil. On to number 6. Same deal, pretty clean cylinder wall, but I'm seeing what looks like a drop of surface rust, like a single drop of water got in or something. I'm not sure, but it doesn't look too bad though. Overall, everything looking really good, so on to the other side. Starting with cylinder number 5. Whoa, check it out. One of the valves is open and there's like something hanging from a spider web. That's crazy. Kind of feel bad we're going to have to kick the spider out of the engine. I bet he's been living here forever. Yeah, look, it looks like a pine needle or something. Sorry, little guy. Okay, number 3. Another one way up at the top of the stroke. All you can see is some really flaky carbon deposits. Nothing to learn from this one. Last is cylinder number 1. Okay, looks like some light surface rust. That tracks with the drop I saw on the other cylinder. It doesn't look too serious though. It looks like it's from humidity rather than sitting water. That should clean right up after I spray some oil in here and turn the engine over a few times. Alright, now I'm going to spray the cylinders with some oil and see if it rotates. So WD-40 is what I got on hand, and the little red spray nozzle fits, so it's what I'm going to use. Alright, not bad. It was a little gummy for sitting for 20 years, but no serious resistance. And it started to turn smoothly, like really quick. Hell yeah, nothing but good signs. Now I'll drop the oil pan and see what there is to see. Yeah, I almost forgot the oil filter because it's so rusty, it just looks like the block. And it was frozen on there, but yeah, I got it. So far, all the mounting surfaces feel like they're glued together, and I can't tell you if it's like a ton of RTV, because I know these engines were very leaky when they were popular, or it's just general corrosion, but I'm definitely fighting with everything. Alright, that's pretty cool to look at. So from what I understand, gold is a good color on the inside of an engine, and I'm very happy to not see sludge everywhere.
I love gold!
I get the feeling this engine was well taken care of from an oil change perspective, so that leaves me feeling good about using these parts. Yeah, that's the green light I'm looking for to keep going with disassembly. So most of the accessories on this new engine are trash. They just need to be ripped off and tossed. Now this is going to be a challenge though, because I'm seeing a lot of aluminum parts held down with steel bolts, which are going to be god dang glued together. Yeah, this is going to be tough. So I figured I'd start with the intake, saw that wasn't going to work, changed my approach, and I went for the pulleys and timing stuff instead. Weirdly familiar. Yeah, I've done all this before on the engine that came in the Caravan. Yep, I'm getting flashbacks. Yeah, again, most of these parts I'm taking off are getting tossed, so I'm just putting them and the hardware off to the side.
What do you mean by that?
So I get this stupid timing belt and these cam pulleys out of the way, and then I can start back on the intake. So this is where all this aluminum crap really started fighting me. So the hammer and pry bars had to come out. Got the throttle body off, then the top of the intake, which exposed the fuel rail and injector wiring. I made a choice earlier not to cut this wiring off in case I need a connector or runs a cable or something later on. I'm not going to throw anything away until the rebuild is done, you know, just in case. Yeah, it's full Smelly old gas. Yeah, so I pulled the fuel rail out of the way, and this is where my battle with the lower intake began. The mounting studs for the lower intake are vertical and they come out of the heads. Because that's not going to be a zero tolerance fit, there's like a little pocket there where water can sit, and that's exactly what happened. Every single bolt hole is full of corrosion, and this thing wasn't budging. It was really driving me nuts, but I wasn't going to let this stop me, so I did something kind of wacky. Do as I say, not as I do. Do not try this at home, and this is not how these tools are meant to be used. But I rigged up the shop crane to pull up straight on the intake while I kind of pushed down on the engine stand with my feet. And then I beat the hell out of it with a rubber mallet.
Come on! Get up!
Doing this had it coming up like a hair at a time, and it was mostly non-destructive. So I just hung on the shop crane and walloped on it for a while. I lost like half a day doing this, but it eventually came off and I was happy.
Yeah! Woo! Woohoo! Excellent!
And for all that effort, this stupid thing is just going in the trash. So the alternator bracket was stuck too, also aluminum. Partly my fault because I snapped a bolt trying to get this off earlier. By this point, I'm tired of fighting with stuck parts, so I'm just going to soak it in penetrating oil. I just gave this thing a bath. Same deal here. Just got to work it back and forth for over an hour until the corrosion powder breaks up, and then the part falls off. Yeah, next is this broken bolt. It's broken off in the head, which is a part I want to keep, so I gotta remove it. Yeah, it's definitely stuck. It was not just the aluminum. So I'm gonna hit it with this induction heater I got on Amazon. Heats up anything made out of metal red hot using magnetic induction, which sounds like magic. Once it's hot, I'll spray more penetrating oil, then I'll work it back and forth with some vice grips. Yeah, nice and easy. Broken hardware can be a real pain, but next I'll get the exhaust manifolds and crossover tube out of the way. This stuff is pretty rusty. It's probably going in the trash too. Exhaust hardware is usually stuck from all the heat cycles, like getting hot and cold over and over again. So I'm starting early with the penetrating oil and the induction heater. With one manifold and gasket out of the way, I can turn this thing around and get a better angle at the other manifold. Now this side has that big connector in the way of the center bolt, so I can't really get at it with the impact. I don't feel like slowing down, and I don't need this part, so I'm just going to slice it off. Alright, that was easy. Next, hit the top hardware with the heater and some oil, impact them off, and of course this side wants to fight me. Same deal, corrosion between the studs and the manifold. Steel on steel though, so this is just rust. I'm going to apply the same elegant solution. Whack it with a hammer and work it back and forth until it hits the floor. Great, got that off, pulled it to the side, and then pulled the gasket off last. Now for some interesting stuff, because these are parts that I need. I'm going to pull this other valve cover off and then take off the cylinder heads. I know they look good from the top, we already saw that together, but I'm interested in seeing coolant passages and combustion chamber. Yeah, a bunch of carbon, no surprises. We'll get a better look here in a second. Get the other side off here, same process, and we'll get the head gasket out of the way. So got them up here on the table for inspection, and the valve trains look good. We've already seen this, no surprises, but let's just take a second to appreciate how clean they are. Alright, combustion chamber side looks pretty good with no signs of failed head gaskets, no crossover between the cylinders, no crazy scoring. But whatever was putting the cooling system looks gross. It looks like sand crystals or something nasty. But it does give me an idea for why this engine might have been pulled. Yeah, everything's still looking good, so I'm going to continue. Next up is to remove the oil pump and water pump from the short block. So I started removing the oil pump and then I went to rotate the engine for better access. Didn't realize it was still full of old, gross coolant and it spilled everywhere. And the bottom of my sneakers are slick, so I was like slipping all over the place for the rest of the day. It sucked. Huge party foul. So I got that cleaned up the best I could and then finished rotating the engine. Then I just hammered off the oil pump and set it aside. Water pump was the same deal. Remove the hardware, whack it a few times to loosen it up, and then pull it off. And when I did, my suspicions from earlier were confirmed. This thing was full of stop leak. So some previous owner was fighting with a coolant leak somewhere. They were losing coolant, they were dripping coolant, they added some gunk to the cooling system, which gestated into an alien life form over the past 20 years, living in the back of a container in some salvage yard, and is now growing sentient in my garage. Yeah, the engine is full of slime. Gonna put it out of my mind for now. It's gonna get hot tanked. Everything will be fine. So with the engine naked and all the important bits showing, I'm gonna give it one last visual inspection before I bless it and pack it up for the machine shop. I'm gonna soak it in more WD-40 and rotate it by hand a bunch of times just to feel it out and look at it. Rotating it again to look from the bottom, I shined a flashlight in to see the bottom of the pistons and cylinders. To my caveman brain, everything looks great. So as far as I know, when you got that golden color inside of an engine, it's because the engine has seen a lot of fresh oil, and there was no opportunity for black, dirty oil to stain or leave deposits. So I think I see some evidence of blow-by, but I'm not surprised, as these engines have a reputation for burning oil. Yeah, the guy at the salvage yard said this engine had 100,000 miles on it, and I'm not worried because I'm going to rebuild it anyways. Alright, as far as I can tell, I got a perfect core for my needs. Woo! I'm packing this thing up on Monday and bringing it to the machine shop where they're going to rebuild the short block and heads for me. I told them I want to do the assembly here. I'm doing videos for YouTube, and the guy was like, yeah, whatever you want, boss. He did not care at all.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm gonna pull the accessories off the old engine. I'll check out the brakes and go over pads, rotors, lines, and hoses. And then I'll put some fresh wheels on this thing. So I made a decision on the wheels. I'm not gonna tell you yet, but parts are on their way and it's gonna look awesome. All right, thanks for checking in. See ya.